A tenant in a New York City building expects a seven-figure payout from a developer, and the developer is suing that tenant for $25 million. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting story for you today, and it's going over this outrageous situation that's going on up in New York City. Now, I've actually covered this story before, but I want to do a little bit of a refresher on it because, it's really interesting. It kind of goes into the fact that it is extremely difficult to evict tenants in New York, especially rent-controlled tenants, and I'm guessing that this is a rent-controlled building, and the tenants feel entitled to, big payouts if you are trying to, get out of the rental business and turn your building into condos. And this is an absolutely crazy thing. So the last tenant in this building who, they rejected all other offers and refuses to leave is, they're hoping for a seven-figure payout. They want more than $1 million to relinquish their unit. And this is crazy to me, at least. This might be a standard thing up in New York, but it goes back to show you that, hey, the tenant protections in New York are too strong. Okay? There's no reason why any tenant needs a seven-figure payout to leave an apartment. Now, I could even, I don't believe in payouts at all, but how can a tenant justify seven figures? I mean, honestly, if you have to find a new place, even in Manhattan, it's not going to cost you a full year of rent is not going to cost you $1 million. A full year of rent ain't going to cost you $100,000. I mean, if we're talking about you're paying $5 or $6 grand a month, even if you're paying 10 grand, let's say you're paying 10 grand a month, that might be 120 grand right there. And that's a really nice apartment in New York, right? But they're asking for over $1 million. And of course, the landlord's refusing. So, this whole lawsuit situation has occurred. So before I get into these articles, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What do you think of a tenant who can hold up a, tens of millions of dollars in apartment development by refusing to leave their unit? And New York law allowing them to do this, allowing them to not be evicted because their eviction protections are so strong. What do you think of that? I imagine not many landlords on my channel think that this is cool, okay? And this is the reason why housing is so expensive in New York, why nobody wants to build there, why there's this huge shortage of affordable housing, because they make it impossible to do business. Whew, this is a crazy story. So let's get right into it. The first article I have for you today, it's coming from patch.com, and it says, Upper West Side landlord files demolition permit. Holdout tenant stands firm. Yeah, they intend on demolishing this building, like completely tearing it down. And this tenant is refusing to leave and is the only one refusing to leave. So let's get into the story. The battle rages on between a real estate organization and a lone tenant of an Upper West Side building. The Naftali Group at the end of last week filed a demolition permit with the city for 215 West 84th Street, which it bought as part of its $71 million purchase of 207 to 221 West 84th Street. The one problem? A person still lives in the building. While the developer filed the new demolition permit, it does not mean that the holdout tenant is any closer to moving out. The new owners stopped accepting lease renewals, and all other residents have agreed to move out. So yeah, imagine this, right? You are saying, hey, we're literally getting out of the landlord business. We are tearing the building down. And this tenant's like, no, you cannot make me leave my rent-controlled apartment. No, it's not fair. And it's so stupid, right? The tenant doesn't even actually want to stay. The tenant just wants a big paycheck, okay? You should never be to the point where, your property rights as a landlord are so little, so unimportant that you have to pay a tenant, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to get them out. But that is exactly what's happened in New York. These tenants, they can't be evicted. And, even when the building itself is being torn down. I mean, you wonder why, you hear these stories of in the past when these building owners used to go up and literally burn their own buildings down. Well, they had to do it because they couldn't get the tenants out. There was the only way. That's insane. But you then you begin to understand why when you read stories like this. The developer plans to build an 18-story luxury condominium tower at the address to replace the 4-story building that currently stands there. ASU and Naphtali Group have filed multiple lawsuits against one another and received coverage from the New York Times, New York Post, and other major publications. Accusations from the dueling sides include a media war from ASU's legal team and the purposeful displacement of noisy industrial air filters outside of his door by the new building owners. Naphtali Group also claims that ASU is attempting to get a 7-figure payout. Yeah, that's what this really comes down to, money. It doesn't have anything to do with, oh, I need somewhere to live, I'm just this poor tenant. That's a bunch of garbage, okay? And the fact that the city allows this to happen, this should be like anything going against this landlord should just be thrown straight out, okay? This developer owns the building and is going to tear it down, okay? You have to find somewhere new to live. You cannot stay there. Your lease is not being renewed. You do not have a right to this property. You have to go. You're the only one not going. And if we have to get the police in here, because that might actually be a better option, right? Just get the police in there, and have them dragged out. Unfortunately, as I've stated many times before, the eviction court backlog in New York is so bad that it could be, multiple years before you're able to get that tenant out of there. Okay, there's nothing that the landlord, the property developer can do because their court system, their bureaucracy, all the ridiculous anti-landlord laws that are in place have basically created a perfect storm situation where it is easier for them to pay the tenant off than it is to actually go through the legal process. Yeah, that is a failure of government. Failure of government. The New York City government is a complete failure. So I'm going to go over to the second article here, and it's covering the same topic, and it says, Upper West Side developers file $25 million suit over holdout tenants' media circus. All right, so Upper West Side, New York. New owners of an Upper West Side building are suing a holdout tenant's legal team for waging a media war against the real estate development company, court records show. Naphtali Group filed a $25 million suit Monday against Adam Lightman Bailey and his firm over publicity tactics used to represent Ahmet Najat Asu, the only resident of 215 West 84th Street to decline their recent buyout offer, the suit shows. So when I covered this topic before, somebody brought up to me that the real villains in this case aren't even the tenants. Okay, you would think, hey, man, this tenant is going to get this huge payout. No, it's not the tenants, right? It's the lawyers. They have lawyers, and this is all they do. All they do is go after landlords for these payouts, and they take the majority of that money, and the tenant gets a little small portion of it. So, yeah, we've got these law firms out here doing this garbage, and it is completely screwing landlords over. It's completely screwing developers over. And even the tenants are losing because what is the result of this? When you have these lawyers running around driving up the cost of rents, well, that's exactly what's going to happen. The cost of rent is going to skyrocket. It's going to go through the roof, okay? And that's why there's no affordable housing in New York, because ridiculous lawsuits put out by greedy, stupid lawyers. And I'm not saying all lawyers are like that, right? But these lawyers in particular who do this nonsense are, okay? They don't even deserve to have a law license because they are the worst type of scum possible. Just literally screwing landlords over, screwing developers over, screwing the tenants themselves over with their stupid garbage. And you know what? I wish that this, this developer here wins their lawsuit, wins the $25 million judgment and completely bankrupts this law firm who is filing this ridiculous mess and trying to get this 7-figure payout. Oh man, I wish they would win. Developers bought the Upper West Side building for $70 million in 2021, planning to turn it into condominiums. But ASU foiled their plans by refusing to budge, according to the suit filed by Manhattan's Supreme Civil Court. Naphtali argues Bailey mounted a media war when a quick settlement deal didn't come through. inviting reporters into Asu's home to force the landlord's hand. Unable to quickly extract the seven-figure payout he expects, his lawyers have turned what should be a dispute settled according to the law into a multinational media circus, the complaint contends. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is, okay? Rather than being able to, go through the legal process, rather than being able to use the laws that are already in place to remove this tenant, instead, they are, being trashed on, oh, they're taking this poor man's home away. No, this is a money grab, period. Money grab by a bunch of greedy lawyers and a tenant who is greedy, by the way, as well, okay? But the lawyers are the true cause of all this mess. They probably sought him out. They looked for somebody in this building specifically so that they could file this lawsuit, just so that they could extract that money. That is their whole job. That is their whole purpose, and they're scumbags for doing that sort of thing.